It's time to sit back, relax, and listen to Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life will inspire, motivate, and empower you. Live your best life now. Listen, learn, think, and decide. Change your attitude, change your life. And now, here's your host, Joan Herman.
Welcome to Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. You're listening to us in your neighborhood from coast to coast and around the world. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Joan Herman, author, speaker, and your host. For 4 years, Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life has been bringing you interviews with some of the most inspirational and influential people in the world. It's our goal to educate and empower you so you can live your best life now. Thank you for taking time for yourself, and thank you for letting us be a part of your life. We have another great show for you today. Joining me is author, teacher, and master of deep work for change, Richard Moss. Richard is here to talk about the work we can do to take our professional life and relationships to a new depth and level of effectiveness. Richard's most recent book is Inside Out Healing. Richard guides seminars and retreats around the world and is the author of 7 books. Richard, thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm very honored. Thank you, Joan.
Richard, your work deals so much with people learning about the power of presence. What do you mean when you say we need to be present in our life?
You can't change the future unless you change the quality of your relationship with yourself and with your circumstances in the present moment. You can't change the past unless you look back at the memory, and instead of giving it the old interpretation, which a part of the brain reimagines over and over again, no human being actually remembers the past accurately. We all believe we do, but there's piles of data that show that we don't. We just believe the most recent imagining of what we think happened when we were 10 or 9 or 13 or 27. Memory is imaginary to a large degree. So the question is, if you're going to remember, what does that remembrance do to you right now? If you're going to anticipate to the future, which is a useful thing to do, but if you're going to imagine, for example, you're not going to have enough money for a dignified old age, that thought in this moment makes you sick, makes you anxious and worried and fretful and scared, closes you down to your ability to be in relationship with life, with the breeze, with the colors, with the quality, with people, even with animals. If you're thinking the thought, oh, I wonder if I'll have enough money for my old age, even a pet will move away from you or come to console you because they can feel, they can read that you are poisoning yourself. So the reason it's so essential people learn to be in the present moment and in their bodies is so they can recognize that the only harm that's ever going to come to them is really not going to come from outside. It's going to come, I mean, a plane can crash or you can have an auto accident. All kinds of things like that can happen. But then it's not a question of, all right, I was in an auto accident, now I'm paraplegic. The question is, what are you going to tell yourself about that? You're going to close your heart? Partly I'm saying it because for the last 4 months I have not been able to walk due to a very arthritic hip that kind of came on very fast. And I take wheelchairs through all the airports with my extensive travel. And instead of that making me down, I've become even more spacious and alive and happy because I have a chance to say yes to things I never said yes to before. And it's so easy to drop the man I was who rode a bike 150 miles a week. I ran a half marathon last September. I'm 66. I still climb mountains. I love being in my body and in nature. And yet when I lost the ability to do all of that, it didn't make a bit of difference.
Richard, do you think the negative self-talk and the self-limiting thoughts that we have, do you think that is our number one roadblock to creating the life that we want?
Yes, I think that is the number one, sharing another one, roadblock. We believe our thoughts. When we say, he doesn't love me, we believe it. We don't sit down and say, what's the evidence for that? Maybe he's really depressed. Maybe he's scared. So yes, you're right. It's not just negative thought, too. It's false hope. It's imagining futures that are a way of escaping the present. We fabricate a future that we imagine will make us feel good because we do not know how to be present with what we're feeling right now. So sharing that number one spot, in my mind, is not only the negative self-talk, It's the fact that we have not been taught, and we are very, very poorly able to be with scary feelings. And, we have this whole mythology of heaven and hell. And it comes from not the existence of something in an afterlife where there's a heaven or a hell. It comes from the fact that, like weather, that can change from the most gorgeous, simple, pleasant day to a hurricane or a tornado, we are literally washed with changes of feeling. Some of it's precipitated by illness or over too much stress. Some of it's precipitated by being near people who are in pain. And some of it is our collective read on the craziness of our human world now and the destruction of the environment. So this inability to be with very threatening feelings in creative, healthy ways, or even with the most ecstatic, luminous, joyous feelings, because then you spend the rest of your life chasing after trying to have that same experience again. And boy, have I met many people who do that. They throw away decades of their lives hoping that with the next teacher or with ayahuasca or some drug or some meditation practice or this or that, they're going to find their way back to this bliss that they experienced when they were 21 or 31 or 20, whatever. Mm-hmm. So even the positive feelings, if you just don't let them go and you just chase after them, all you do is make the present moment inferior.
Richard, what would you say are some of the ways that we can change or eliminate these self-limitations?
I've put this very clearly into my books over the years, especially in Inside Out Healing and which is my most recent book, and the previous one, The Mandala of Being. So the methodology that I'm going to talk about now, if a person doesn't fully understand it, they can go and learn a lot more. Essentially, what I've come to understand is there were only 4 places my mind could take me when it pulled me out of the present. And those 4 places are stories or judgments about myself that either puff me up and make me superior or shrink me down and make me inferior. So every human being judges themselves multiple times a day, maybe dozens or hundreds of times a day. And some of those judgments make you feel superior and some of them inferior. None of that's you. It's just the emotion created by the judgment or the emotion created by the belief about you. So if you can wake up when you hear yourself saying, I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, I have to try harder, those kinds of thoughts create stress instantaneously. The brain secretes neurotransmitters that tell the body, I'm under attack. And while there's no animal attacking us, we're under attack by the thoughts. The same is true whenever we judge another. When we say, he doesn't love me, she doesn't trust me, they won't be there for me, the government is abusing its power. All of those kinds of thoughts in the now poison you. They make you stressed, which in turn makes you less capable of perceiving a relationship to all of life, therefore less capable of respecting and honoring the space of others, and less capable of respecting and honoring the environment. So it makes you less relational, it makes you smaller and contracted, but inside your body, it's aging you. It's aging you with stress. So that's the judgments of ourselves, the judgments of others. And likewise with time, there's only the present moment. We never, ever live in the past, but the stories we tell ourselves about the past can make us very sick right now. Sick with grief, sick with anger, sick with bitterness, sick with self-attack, just because we can remember the past in a particular way and tell ourselves a certain story. There's absolutely no reason that you should bother with a story that poisons your present moment, but most people do it all the time. And then we go to the future. If we remember the past in a negative way, we're going to be afraid of repeating that in the future. So we anticipate the future, like the woman I met recently who said one of her biggest fears was, I won't have enough money to have a dignified old age. And when I asked her what that did to her, the moment she thought that, she said, oh, I get tight. My stomach is clamping down. I feel small. My breathing is shallow. And in other words, she's poisoning her body. So that you have to see that you're doing that. The listener has to understand you were not put on planet Earth to be a victim, to be used by your thinking. You were put on planet Earth to use your thinking to make a world fit for everybody, to use your thinking to become part of life, to experience profound intimacy. And to live in your body in the present moment is essential. not to live in the thoughts about the past or the future or yourself or others. Now, there are perceptions of others. You can say that person is unhappy, and it's not a judgment. You see it. It's clear. It's true. You can say that person is really afraid. That's not a judgment that hurts you. It's a perception, and you can always check it out. You can always ask the person. You can always, gently suggest that maybe the fear is making them more aggressive than they need to be, or more self-pitying than they need to be. So it's waking up in the moment, seeing what you're telling yourself, and stopping that process, and beginning to trust that who you really are begins right now, and who you really are is connected to timeless wisdom, profound intuition, a deep sense of intimacy with life. Who you really are is profoundly intelligent when it's not all mucked up with thoughts about you that judge you negatively or positively. More grandiose, optimistic CEOs make the biggest mistakes with their companies than the cautious, more pessimistic, less inflated CEOs. That was a very interesting study to read. And yet we prefer to elect to lead us these grandiose, puffed-up people. When there's a person who has profound humility, I can't help but think of Abraham Lincoln. Ooh, what an amazing human being. Then we have someone fit for leadership.
The book is Inside Out Healing, Transforming Your Life Through the Power of Presence by Richard Moss. Richard, if you'd like our listeners to get more information about you and your work, where can they go?
Best thing to do is to go to the website, try out the free e-course that teaches you about being in the presence, in present moment, or go to my Facebook and like me and get the messages I give every day. And the other thing is there are quite a few free videos to watch on my YouTube channel that are instructional, that teach about centering, that teach about the art of listening and the art of speaking in ways that allow a relationship to go into much greater depth and intimacy. So that's the best ways.
Richard, in about 30 seconds or less, what would be a main message that you would like our listeners to walk away with from this interview?
Well, I wouldn't think about a message. I would say, try to say thank you 1,000 times a day. Try to say thank you, almost like a thought, a mantra in your mind. When you feel unhappy, instead of thinking other thoughts, just say, thank you that I feel this. Because if you're dead, you wouldn't feel it. If you're in a coma, you wouldn't feel it. You're happy, say thank you. When you see a person in pain, say thank you that I can perceive this person's pain. And then if there's something you can do about their pain, do something. But just practice saying thank you. I think the most powerful prayer of all is thank you. To ask God for something is, in a certain sense, to be so self-involved. To say to God, whatever you've given me, thank you. And so let's say thank you to that mystery of what's created us, for everything we feel and sense and perceive. I'm looking out, I see some beautiful orange flowers. Thank you. There's some clouds in the blue sky. Thank you. There's a house being built with piles of boulders and dust and noise right behind my backyard. Thank you. That's the message. Say thank you, and just keep saying thank you until something inside of you starts to embrace life in a very deep way.
Live a life of gratitude. It always comes down to that message. A good life, a life of gratitude. Richard, thank you so much for being here with us today. Your work, it's definitely been something that's relevant to me. I have spent a greater part of my life dealing with self-limiting, negative inner talk, those voices in my own head. So I'm so appreciative that you're here with us today sharing this wisdom that you've acquired over the years. Thank you again.
You're very welcome. And the good news is it actually changes people's lives profoundly. But it takes practice. Practice, practice, practice.
We'll be right back. It's time for this week's Medical Minutes. Joining me today is Dr. Stewart Fleishman, author of Learn to Live Through Cancer, What You Need to Know and Do. Welcome, Dr. Fleishman. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Dr. Fleishman, a total of 1,638,910 new cancer cases are projected to occur in the United States this year. Is that a number that's steadily increasing?
Well, that number is increasing because the public health message that the field has been pushing for many years is effective. People are getting screened earlier. They're getting diagnosed earlier. More and more people are going for treatment because in many cancers, not all, unfortunately, but in many cancers, treatment is more effective. And the numbers show that there are about 12 million cancer survivors currently in the United States today, and it's projected that by the year 2022, that number will reach 22 million Americans.
So early detection, going for those physical checkups, that is really the key. Is that why, although the number is on the rise, people are not dying because we're catching it earlier? Is that the key to survival?
Well, it's a combination of things. It's going for the checkups as well as getting the screening tests, mammograms or PSAs for men with prostate cancer. The age to start, the age to stop, the interval between them is controversial, but those tests save lives.
Dr. Fleischman, is it becoming somewhat of a chronic condition? I mean, just something we're learning to live with?
Well, that's true for many cancers, that people live a very long time and will often die of something else not related to the cancer or their treatment.
What types of cancers are really, in your opinion, preventable today?
Well, the issue about tobacco products and smoking is rather clear, and those products actually can affect not only lung cancer, but head and neck cancers, cancers in the esophagus, cancers of the bladder. That's a real big one. There's more and more evidence as time goes by that being significantly overweight because of the risk of retaining more hormones can actually promote the diagnosis or the development of breast cancer or prostate cancer, which are hormonally dependent cancers. So being overweight significantly, smoking, secondhand smoke, or toxic chemicals that are known to be connected to the development of cancer are two of the big public health issues that can actually make a difference in the amount of cancer we're seeing in future generations.
Doctor, hearing those words, you have cancer, those are probably some of the scariest words that most of us fear that one day we will hear. What is something that someone needs to do, the first thing that someone needs to do when they hear those words, you have cancer?
When you're hearing those words, you shouldn't be alone. You should be with someone. You should be with someone who you trust to ask a whole lot of questions and take a lot of good notes. Because once those words are uttered, study after study shows that even the brightest, most intelligent, most tuned-in people remember very little of what's said next. So having somebody there to listen and ask questions is a good idea. The next thing to do is to take a deep breath and to really learn about the situation. Because although it seems like you need to do something yesterday or even sooner, most people and most situations in which cancer is diagnosed, there's a little bit of time. And during that time, getting a second opinion, unless it's an emergency, is vital. And that second opinion will make sure that you and your family know that you're on the right track for you and your situation and your type of cancer.
What would you say are some questions that a patient should always ask in the beginning?
Well, at the beginning is, what kind of cancer is it? If enough testing has been done, what stage is it? Where is it gone? And what is the best treatment plan with the information that we have now? Sometimes more tests need to be done. And sometimes the treatment plan isn't evident right at the beginning.
How important is it for us to treat the whole person, not just the physical, but the emotional and spiritual parts?
Well, I'm biased when it comes to this issue because I believe that cancer doesn't happen in a vacuum. It affects oneself to the core. It affects the way you live your life. It affects the choices you make at that moment. It affects your family. It affects your work. It affects all the things that you do that are important for sustenance and for fun and for existential and spiritual issues. So the multidisciplinary team can actually help cover all the bases.
In your research, have you seen a correlation between healing with patients that are more spiritual than those that are not?
Well, that's also somewhat controversial because in American medicine we used to put spirituality on the side thinking that that was too personal and that's something that didn't belong in medicine. We now understand that to heal the body, our minds and our spirits need to be in the best place possible. So spirituality certainly has more and more of a role in hospitals and in treatment for illnesses, especially cancer treatment. It's thought to be really, really important in the healing process.
What are a couple of things that you would like our listeners to remember from this interview, the most important things?
Well, the most important things are have a plan, and you often need somebody with you at the beginning, and then I really do encourage people to work on getting better right from the time of diagnosis so they're not so spent at the end, they're not so fatigued, they haven't gained or lost too much weight, and they're not so frightened. You can spend your time controlling the things that you can control, how much you're exercising, what you're eating, what you're doing, and what you're learning in order to come out as whole as possible.
Dr. Fleishman, if our listeners would like to get more information about you, where can they go?
The website is cancerknowanddo.com and on Facebook at Cancer Know and Do.
Doctor, thank you so much for spending time with us today. Cancer is a major public health concern, and it's something that's very scary to all of us. And I think the information that you've provided here today will help to empower so many people. So thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for having me.
We'll be right back.
Summer's over, the leaves are beginning to change color, and a new school year is just beginning. Back to school means back to school lunches. Lunch at school is a great opportunity to expand your child's dietary intake. Hi, I'm Carrie Kelly, registered dietitian at the Active Center for Health and Wellness in Hackensack, New Jersey. This school year, try to stay away from the cafeteria chicken nuggets and the prefabricated peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. This year, make an effort to provide your kids with fun and nutritionally packed brown bag lunches sent from home. Get the kids involved by taking them along with you to the supermarket and allowing them to help choose some new items to try. Have you noticed just how many apple varieties are available these days in the markets? It's enough to make your head spin. The Modest apple is loaded with both soluble and insoluble fiber and is an excellent source of vitamin C. Bring your kids along and let them pick a couple of different varieties to try. Bring the apples home and have a taste test. Talk about their texture. Is it crisp or soft? Their flavor, is it tart or sweet? And their appearance. What color is it? Is it big or small? Have them pick a winner and use that variety in a recipe. But remember to keep the skin on those apples because that is where the majority of its nutrients are. Encourage your child's interest in discovering new foods, even if it's as simple as a new variety of apple. For more information, give me a call at 201-487-4600 or visit us on the web at theactivecenter.com.
Did you know that more than 20,000 cases of breast cancer are diagnosed each year in the United States in women under the age of 40? And that when cancer occurs in younger women, it usually is a much more aggressive form that is less likely to respond to treatment. Experts recommend regular breast cancer screenings beginning at the age of 40. But why wait until then? When there is a safe, non-invasive way to help determine your risk of developing breast cancer, or even detect it in a very early stage. Hi, I'm Lisa Mack, owner of Lisa's Thermography and Wellness, located in Short Hills, New Jersey. I'm a certified thermographic technician and a holistic nutritionist. Breast thermography is a radiation-free, state-of-the-art screening procedure that captures heat images of the breast to aid in early detection of breast cancer. There is no radiation emitted from an infrared imaging device, making it safe to start having screenings at any age. It is non-invasive and there is no compression involved, eliminating the risk of damage to implants or underlying breast tissue. Thermography can be used as a preventative, adjunctive screening for identifying signs of abnormal pathology years before a mammogram in some cases. Mammograms are better for detecting mature, later-stage pathology. In some cases, thermography can detect abnormalities up to 10 years prior to it showing up in a mammogram. It is well known that early detection is the best defense against breast cancer, and if it is treated in the earliest stages, a 95% cure rate can be achieved. If you want to learn more about how to decrease your breast cancer risk, give me a call at 877-315-7226, extension 446, or visit me on the web at lisasthermographyandwellness.com. I'm Lisa Mack. Let's prevent it before it develops into a problem.
We all want to live a happy, productive life, but sometimes we need a little help. Our Coach on Call experts provide strategies to help you cultivate effective life skills. Joining me today is Richard Ryerson, a John Maxwell certified professional leadership trainer, coach, speaker, and host of the Dose of Leadership podcast. Welcome, Richard. Thanks for joining us today.
Great to be here.
Richard, people in business use the terms accountability and responsibility interchangeably. They seem like the same thing to me, but what is the difference to you?
Yeah, for me, if you're interested in dipping your foot into the leadership pool, you got to understand that there's a very subtle but very powerful difference between accountability and responsibility. To me, as a leader, you have to understand that you can delegate responsibilities to numerous individuals all day long, but the key is only one person can be held accountable. As a pilot, as you know, I flew in the Marine Corps and still fly to this day, and I've had multiple crew members on there. In the C-130, for example, I had a co-pilot, a navigator, a flight engineer, a first mechanic, and a loadmaster. And each of these crew members had a unique functional responsibility that they were required to have a safe and effective flight. The flight engineer and the first mechanic, for example, were responsible for the systems, the loadmaster for loading the plane. But as the aircraft commander, I had the additional weight of being ultimately accountable for everything that happened on that aircraft. So if one of those functional leaders failed in their functional responsibility, I was the one that was held accountable for their failure.
Richard, why do you think there's such a lack of accountability in the real world?
Well, I think because it's easier said than done. I don't care if it's a $5 mistake or a $5 million mistake. It's never easy to stand up and accept the fault of others, right? It's hard to accept this accountability because the reality is you may lose your position, you may lose your title, you may lose your job because of the mistake of someone else. But that is the real price of leadership. The good news is, however, is that more often than not, you will ultimately be rewarded for standing up and taking the heat for your folks. By having that courage, that moral courage, that's why it's so difficult to rise up and accept accountability. The reality is you will breed loyalty, respect, and dedication from your team members that is unsurpassed and very hard to define. And I think that's why it's so difficult, but the payoff is so huge. You just don't see enough of it.
Richard, thank you for being here with us today and for spending time with us. If you'd like more information, you can visit richardryerson.com or adoseofleadership.com. Thank you for joining us today. We hope you found the show informative. At Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life, we believe that knowledge is power. Take what you've learned, apply it, and live your best life now. Remember that this information is for educational purposes only and should never replace the advice of a professional who knows your personal situation. If you'd like more information, you can visit our website, cyacyl.com. That stands for Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. While on the site, listen to past shows on demand, read the digital magazine, take part in the book club, sign up for the mailing list, and be sure to follow the show on Facebook and Twitter. Until next time, this is Joan Herman. Thanks for tuning in.